Hello and welcome to Charity's Treasures. Today is Definition Tuesday. Am I purposely trying to make you cry, make you happy, make you laugh, or be angry, etc.? Well, let's find out. Okay, today's word is rhetorical. I am going to just read a little bit of information on what that word means, and then we'll talk about it. Using language, this is what it means. Using language, speaking, or writing for persuasive effect, often focusing on a style or making a point rather than just conveying information, like asking a rhetorical question that doesn't expect an answer. It can also describe language that sounds impressive but lacks substance. Using language, spoken or written, effectively to persuade, intended to convince, influence, or impress an audience, often focusing on style rather than just content. Relating to rhetoric, frequently involving elaborate, rhetorical, or in some contexts, bombastic language. Using metaphors, ironies, or hyperboles used to emphasize a point. Using language persuasively to influence others. Using communication to modify the perspective of at least one person. An example. Do you think money grows on trees? It is a lovely day. You're all talk and no action. So I will use language that is directed to persuade. So on my episode on Saturday about part of my interpretation of Charlie and the Big Fish dream, that was my dream. Someone wrote a comment, which I am very glad when people write comments. I hardly get any comments. So I wish more people would write comments. This comment said, "Is this a parody? Very mean-spirited." End quote. That was the quote. That was "Is this a parody? Very mean-spirited." So they're saying, asking me a question, and then they're saying that my episode was very mean-spirited. Obviously, this person thinks I'm kind of mean. I would like to answer their question. Is this a parody? This is not the definition for today, but I thought I would give you some examples of parodies. And you can go to my Substack and I'll have a full list of all of the definitions and stuff. I just don't kind of skim through them today because it takes a lot of time. Okay, so just a simple definition of parody. A parody is a creative work that is created in order to imitate, comment on, critique, and or mock its subject. It's usually, but not always, meant to be funny, at least a little bit. It's a creative work, a literature, music, film, or art that imitates another well-known work, person, or genre in an exaggerated, ironic, or humorous way. So it's taking someone else's work and using rhetorical language to talk about that work, right? Okay, so there's some examples. If you go to my Substack, you can read some examples of parodies and some other things. So was Saturday's episode a parody? No. This specific episode was not a parody because it was my original work. I was just talking about something I went through. Was I using a lot of rhetorical language? Yes. So do I often use this creative writing style and podcasting style, parodies? Do I sometimes use this? Yes, I do. I'm a storyteller. I'm going to tell you interesting stories, and my deliberate intent will be to intentionally persuade you in a desired direction. I will be purposefully making intriguing points and conveying fantastic information. There will be many times I won't expect an answer, and many times I hope you respond with an answer. I will be using intentional language intended to convince you of what I'm speaking about. I want to impress you with my creativity. I will do this by focusing on style. I will sometimes be very elaborate and use bombastic language. I will emphasize important points. I will probably be a little sarcastic at times. I might even be a bit dramatic so I can persuasively influence the listener. And I will use communication to modify your perspective. I will use parodies. Sometimes you might think I'm being mean. That's okay. That's your right. I will use satire. I will attempt to be extremely funny because obviously I'm funny, right? I mean, I might even use rhetorical language to make you feel like crying. Ugh. I will imitate stories and things happening in the news using language to persuade you to continue to follow me and subscribe to my podcast, hoping that you will hit the like button. I will absolutely tell you what I believe in. I hope this information puts the person who queried this delightful question and comment at ease. And if it doesn't, I'm not sorry. Keep the fun comments coming. All right. So, a little bit about rhetorical language, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So, I was listening on March 7th, 2026 to this podcast that was on Instagram. This guy was a member of the church, and it looks like he has a podcast. I forgot what his name was, so I couldn't find him again, but he was talking about a dream he had, and it was a really nice dream. It was a happy ending dream that was easily understood, and it was a dream that he didn't have to explain to any of us for us to understand the meaning because it was very clear cut. This specific commentary brought my own dreams to my attention. My dreams very rarely, if ever, are clear cut. Anytime I dream, it's always a dream I must figure out. I must intentionally investigate. I must consciously search terms, symbolic reasonings, and scriptures. I must, by design, look back at the past. I must think about the future. I must search general conference talks. I must Google search. To find out what my dream represents, I must go through this entire process. That dream I had that I shared about Jacob's ladder, so much symbolism, so many things that I discovered after I had that vision, right? I was actually looking them up yesterday and I thought, oh, wow, that makes perfect sense, and I was thinking, oh, that makes perfect sense. Because I didn't really look anything up before I relayed the dream because I just didn't have a lot of time. So yesterday I was just like, oh, okay, now I know why I dreamt that. I know why I did this. I know why I did that. So anyways, I know why this person did this. I know why this was this way and why God told me that. So it was really interesting. I oftentimes will look up the things before, but I just didn't have a lot of time. So it was like, oh, that all makes sense. Okay. Let's see. Often I realize I don't have the information that I need because the future hasn't happened yet. So I must patiently wait to interpret the dream. I have dreams sometimes and I don't completely understand them because it's like a future event that needs to happen and steps need to be taken until I understand that. But I can still gather information before the event happens. So I feel like my dreams are parallel in this way to the Old Testament. There's so many dreams in the Old Testament. Most of them are required to have you dig deeper and understand the scriptures at a level of understanding that you know where to go find the answers to the questions you have about the dream and what it represents and what it means. We see that already. I've talked about some of those dreams. Jacob's ladder, for one, lots of symbolism. One thing can mean like two or three different meanings and represent two or three different things, right? Ideas, objects, whatever. So you kind of my dreams, I go down a lot of rabbit holes because there's just so much symbolism in a lot of them. Every time I dream, it's like I'm going on a fantastic journey. I love sometimes to go to bed at night because I'm like, oh, what am I going to dream about tonight? I believe our lives are parallel to the scriptures. They parallel to general conference talks. They parallel to our future and our past. They parallel to pre-existent life and to life after this earth. My puzzling dreams that I need to connect all the time seem to always have a direct connection to one of these areas. I love this about my dreams because it forces me to look beyond the normal in this life, bringing me to mystical places that invigorate my already expansive imagination. It forces me to understand enlightened heavenly principles and doctrines as I read and look up scriptures. It helps me understand the world in an illuminated light instead of dreaded darkness. God created me to tell stories. I'm so happy he did. Therefore, he gives me dreams that allow me to create spectacular stories. The Host. I talked in my episode on Saturday about the book The Host and how the beginning of the story, we're just given all this slow information. And as we're reading the book, we're like, do you really need all this information to give us? But after we get involved in the story and past the seemingly too long preamble, then towards the middle and end, and then the end, we realize we wouldn't have understood the story or the ending if we didn't have the vital information we were given in the beginning. This is kind of like this year. Every day, I'm giving you a narrative that's telling a story. It started at the beginning of the year, and then it's going to end at the end of the year on this specific story because it's the Old Testament. Next year will be the New Testament, which is really exciting because so many things I love about the New Testament. But anyways, so this is what happens. And throughout this year, we're going to have highs. We're going to have a lot of information. We're going to have a high. We're going to have a lot of information. But if you don't listen to all of the information, when you watch the podcast, you're going to be confused. Like this person, right? This person that wrote this to me obviously has not watched any of my episodes. So I don't know if it was a boy or a girl, but they obviously didn't know where the information was coming on Saturday because they didn't go to Tuesday and read the dream I had. So they didn't know. So that's what will happen many times. If you're not watching the episodes, you're not going to know what's going on. Okay. This is parallel. So this storytelling is parallel to the gradual growth of the church. It had a sluggish development. It took a leisurely time to gain power and influence and the required knowledge so we could reach the world. Do you think it's a coincidence that in the last days, this church that was raised up and now has so much power, more power than a church that is supposed to be a true church of Christ that has been on the earth for 2,000 years? In the present time, we have the vital technology to swiftly spread the good gospel news. It's not a coincidence that the technology came at the same time the church was being raised up and at a time where we are in the last days. Can't you see the connections? Can't you see the intersections going on in this process? All these things are intersecting, right? This is how God deliberately works. He makes things obvious, but to the mind that's not educated in the things of God, they don't see these obvious connections, especially they don't notice them as blessings. And if people do recognize a little bit about what's going on, they feel it threatening to their internal world. Our corrupt government sees religion as a threat to their evil agenda and seeks to destroy the principles and doctrines of God. We are seeing this so much so in this administration, which is so corrupt. I have a lot to say about that, but it takes a lot of time to say all those things. Lots of information I want to talk about with this administration. Okay, what is my agenda? Why am I saying all these things? Because there will be times when I need to give you meaningful information. The crucial information is needed for a rise up to the exciting parts of the story. Today is a day of information. It's Definition Tuesday, of course. I'm going to end today's episode by talking about and reading parts of John chapter 21 and Matthew 26. These scripture references are essentially important for tomorrow's episode. I will have all of the scriptures on my Substack, but I'm not going to read them all today. I'm just going to kind of paraphrase and go through the story. As I do this, I will be calculatedly connecting through rhetorical language, parodies, experiences, humor, and other writing styles, the other dreams I had of Charlie and Candace. We will still cover Candace's dream and her experience when Charlie lied to her and relate those dreams also, but there's so much to cover and I cannot do it all in one day. So I'm just going to go through John chapter 21 and Matthew 26. So this will be on my Substack, but you can also go find these scriptures in your Bible. Okay. In John 21, Jesus appears to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias, right? And then he sees Peter and all the, so these apostles, after these things, Jesus showed himself again to the apostles at the Sea of Tiberias. And there were Simon Peter and Thomas called Didymus and Nathanael. So all these apostles were at the sea. And Simon Peter said to all these apostles, I'm going to go fishing. I'm going to go fishing. And they say unto him, we will also go fishing with you. Yay, we're going to go fishing again. Jesus is gone. We have nothing to do, so we're just going to go fishing. Okay, so they went forth and entered into the ship immediately, and that night they caught nothing. But when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore, and the disciples did not know it was Jesus. Then Jesus said unto them, children, have ye any meat? They answered him, no, we have no meat. And he said unto them, cast the net into the right side of the ship, and ye shall find the meat. And so they cast their net, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes. The disciple whom Jesus loved saith unto Peter, it is the Lord. So the Lord saying, Peter, it is I am the Lord. Now when Simon Peter heard that this was the Lord, he girt his fisher's coat unto him. He's like taking off his coat, for he was naked. So here he is. He's taking off his clothes. He's diving into the water and he cast himself in the sea. See Jesus. I wonder what Jesus thought of that. Okay, anyways. And so the other disciples, they didn't undress themselves and go into the sea. They brought their ship into the shore because they weren't far from the shore. And they were dragging all the fishes with them. So they were on the land and they saw this fire. Jesus was there. He had coals in the fire. He's cooking a fish and he has some bread. And Jesus is talking to them saying, bring of the fish which ye have now caught. So he's telling me, bring the fish. And Peter went up and drew the net and brought the fish. And there was a lot of fish. And Jesus said, come and dine with me. And none of the disciples durst ask him, who art thou? But they knew it was the Lord, right? Why were they scared? They've already seen him after his death. Jesus then cometh and taketh the bread, and he's giving them the bread and the fishes. Now, this is the third time. This is an important number for our future episodes. This is the third time that Jesus showed himself to his disciples after he had risen from the dead. The third time. When they had dined, after they were done, Jesus saith to Peter, lovest thou me more than these fish? He saith unto him, yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, feed my lambs. He said to Peter the second time, Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? And he says, yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. And then the Lord says, feed my sheep, Peter. He saith unto him the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Peter was grieved because he said unto him the third time, lovest thou me? And he said unto him, Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest that I love thee. Jesus said unto him, feed my sheep, Peter. Verily, verily, I say unto thee. Okay, so I'm not going to read that part, but you can read the rest of it because it is important. So I just wanted to reiterate that little scene. And then in Matthew 26, this brings us to when Peter denied Christ 3 times. Jesus said unto him, I'm not going to explain any of this today. We're going to explain and talk about it a little bit tomorrow. A little bit because we have to talk probably all week about it. So in Matthew 26, Jesus said unto Peter, that this night before the cock crow, thou shalt deny me thrice. Peter said unto him, though I should die with thee, yet I will not deny thee, Lord. I can just imagine Peter being very dramatic, right? Likewise, he said, all the disciples, I would not deny thee. Now Peter sat within the palace, and a damsel came up to him, saying, thou also was with Jesus of Galilee. You were with Jesus. But he denied before them all, saying, I know not what thou sayest. Depart from me. And when he was gone out of the porch, another maid saw him, and said unto them that were there, this fellow was also with Jesus of Nazareth. This fellow here was with Jesus. And again, he denied with an oath, I do not know the man. Depart from me, lady. And after a while came unto him they that stood by, and said to Peter, surely also you art one of them, for thy speech betrayeth you. Then began he to curse and to swear. That's not appropriate, Peter. You should not be doing that. And he said, I know not the man. And immediately the cock crew. And Peter remembered the word of Jesus, which saith unto him, before the cock crow, thou shalt deny me thrice. And he went out and wept bitterly. All right. So a lot of stuff to remember, a lot of stuff to relate to this account in the scriptures tomorrow and in the coming week. And that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and happy St. Patty's Day, everyone. Okay. Bye, everybody.